Oh, here. Hey guys, it's Miss Hernandez. So it is Friday, May 22nd, and we're actually on our 22nd read aloud video. So I thought that was a interesting little coincidence. So I just wanted to point that out. Alright guys, so we are still reading The Search for the Phoenix Gem and In-Questigation with Sedalia. I'm still, like I said in each of these videos so far, guys, I absolutely love this book. I'm just going to say it again and again and again. I love this book. I'm really excited with how the story is going. It's taking an interesting turn I wouldn't have expected. So last we read, Sedalia actually started going on the path of peril to kind of see what exactly Barley and Ian's adventure consisted of. After she started speaking with, like interviewing a lot of people, she ended up interviewing the Manticore, which I thought was really interesting. And the Manticore told her that the boys took the path of peril to find the Phoenix Gem, so she did confirm that for her. She confirmed that Laurel is, in fact, Barley and Ian's mother, and she was the one with the Curse Crusher during the battle with the dragon. And the only thing she didn't confirm was why the boys went on the adventure. She felt like that was their story to tell, so I thought it was very nice and respectful of her to not share the boys' story like that. All she just stated was that they went on this journey to find the Phoenix Gem. So I'm really excited to see more about this, like this journey Sedalia is about to go on. Last we saw, Sedalia was actually about to cross the bridge that Ian had crossed. Ian and Barley crossed the last time they were on the adventure. So this time the bridge is actually down. But we know when we read onward that Ian had to bring the bridge down using an elevation spell. Aloft Elevor? No, sorry. Bridgegar and Vizia, I think, was the magic spell he used to make an invisible bridge that he had to believe was there, even though he couldn't see it. And he had to cross it and then bring down the actual bridge so they can drive Guinevere across. Oh, I miss Guinevere. So it's interesting to see this time someone going on the same adventure and the bridge is actually down. So I thought that was really interesting. Last we read, it said Sedalia was taking a deep breath. She kept on giving the minivan gas when suddenly she heard a loud snap. So I don't know what happened, you know. I hope it didn't break. I'm not sure. I didn't peek at the next pages. I was waiting for you guys, so I'm really excited to finally read it. So here is chapter 14. I'm so excited to read this, guys. I've been waiting forever. Well, just 2 days, but you know, that's still too long. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get started. And we are about to hit 3 minutes. Perfect. Chapter 14. Sedalia took her foot off the gas and hit the brakes. Then she rolled down the window and leaned her head out carefully. The wooden board beneath her left front tire had snapped. Sedalia wondered just how much stress this ridiculously old bridge could take. She could try to go back where she had come from, but that might just cause the boards to collapse. The same thing could happen if she tried to drive on. Either way, jeopardy was waiting. So what was it to be? Sedalia swallowed hard and hit the gas. No other board snapped on the way across the drawbridge. Miraculously, Sedalia made it to the other side without further incident. That's good. When her mom's minivan was safely on solid ground, Sedalia turned off the engine and got out to look at the drawbridge. She fully expected it to collapse. I so don't want to do that again, Sedalia said. Then she got back into the minivan and pulled out her notebook. Her brain started to sort through everything she had discovered thus far from all the people she'd spoken to in the past 2 days. But the one thing that stuck in her mind that she couldn't quite figure out, the thing that made absolutely no sense, was the weird sunglasses guy who was hanging around with Ian and Barley at the gas station. Oh, yeah. Sorry, guys, I had to pause because the camera was dirty. Okay. Okay. The thing that made absolutely no sense was the weird sunglasses guy who was hanging around with Ian and Barley at the gas station. She had no idea who he could have been. None of Ian's friends or Barley's friends or acquaintances had mentioned anyone who matched the description of Shades. So who was it? Then her brain started to make some connections that it hadn't before. When she had spoken to Officers Gore and Spector, they said they had encountered Officer Bronco and Ian on the highway. They hadn't mentioned anything about Barley. So where was Barley during all that? Hidden in the van, maybe? Elsewhere? And then there was the matter of Ian. Spectre had described Ian as being out of it. No, those weren't her exact words. Sedalia looked down at the notepad, flipping through the pages. She came to the interview with the officers and checked her notes. She saw the scrawled words. Bronco equals little out of it. Ian equals even more out of it. Wearing big puffy clothes, wandering around. So, it's still backwards, but this is the part that she read, that she had scribbled down. That meant Ian was all covered up, and the officers probably didn't get a very good look at him, which meant there was a chance that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't Ian. Then Sedalia thought back to the gas station at Shades. He was also covered up. She'd seen that much on the security footage. Maybe Shades and Ian from the officers' encounter were the same person. So if it wasn't Ian and it wasn't Barley, then who was it? Sedalia kept rolling that thought over and over in her mind until another one wormed its way in. Something else Officer Spectre had said. She flipped through the notepad. Scribbled at the bottom of one page were the words, hoof prints, sneaker prints. So she wrote hoof prints and sneaker prints. That jogged her memory. Officer Spectre had explained how the hoof prints on the ground had suddenly stopped and sneaker prints followed immediately after, almost like someone's feet transformed. Sedalia shook her head. She was still getting used to the idea of real magic, but she decided then and there that she would consider every possibility. After all, wasn't a reporter basically a detective? Hooves, sneakers, she said out loud as she put the notebook away. Sedalia scratched her head, looking through the windshield at the jagged cliffs that surrounded her. She saw majestic mountains in the distance. It may have been called the Path of Peril, but Sedalia had to admit there was also something quite beautiful in their surroundings. What if the hoofs did become sneakers? Sedalia said, giving voice to her suspicion. Because someone had transformed themselves to look like Officer Bronco. So who was it? Ian? Barley? Ian and Barley? Holy Tooth of Sadar, what if it was both of them disguised as Officer Bronco? Guys, did you see how amazing she is? That's crazy. That would explain why neither of them was seen at the van. They were in disguise. And maybe Barley was tiny at the gas station because of magic too. Sedalia didn't know why his size would help them at all, but magic had to be the reason for the strangeness of those situations. But the mystery still remained. Who was Shades? Picking up the notepad from the seat once more, she pulled out the menu and unfolded it. She saw the circled words, Raven's Point. That was her destination. She could see the mountain peaks far in the distance, but there was no way her minivan could take her up those steep slopes. And it was even less likely that she could make it on foot with her deadline looming. How did Ian and Barley manage to get there so quickly? For the first time she had crossed the pit, Sedalia noticed something peculiar. Glancing at the top of the drawbridge, she saw what looked like a stone sculpture of what was that? A bird? No, not just a bird, a raven. What if Raven's Point isn't a place? Sedalia said. What if it's the most obvious thing ever, like a raven pointing? Sedalia stared at the raven sculpture and noticed his beak extending outward. Then her eyes followed the direction in which the beak was pointing. She turned her head and looked off into the distance, squinting. She could just make it out. Another raven sculpture, except it was facing another direction entirely. Maybe the ravens would lead her all the way to, well, if Raven's Point wasn't a place, then where would it lead her? Sedalia was so excited, so eager to pursue the puzzle, that she gunned the minivan in the direction of the second raven. It all sounded so easy, and it probably was, except reality decided to intrude on Sedalia's adventure. In this case, reality was a set of tire tracks that she spotted on the Path of Peril. And then the tracks weren't on the Path of Peril. Oh, guys, no. Up ahead, she saw a wooden fence. Something had smashed right into it, and broken beams lay on the ground. The wood splintered. And there wasn't just one set of tire tracks. There were multiple sets. Sedalia started piecing it together, figuring out it must have been Ian, Barley, and Shades in their van trying to follow the ravens and someone following them, chasing them. The police? Sedalia stopped the van and got out. The tracks definitely veered off the path into the distance. Should she follow those tracks or continue following the ravens? Guys, I know where this is going. Oh, God. As much as she wanted to follow the ravens, Sedalia knew if she wanted to find out exactly what happened to Ian and Barley, then she needed to follow the tire tracks. If they went this direction, she should too. Maybe they got back on track later on. She drove slowly, making sure she stayed along the crisscrossing tracks. That's hard to say. Clearly, several vehicles had driven this direction. She wondered what had led to this case and how they had even found Ian and Barley here. Sedalia stopped when she caught a glimpse of the next raven. She noted the direction in which the raven's beak was pointing. Then she noticed that the tracks suddenly veered in that direction, toward a narrow mountain pass. Ian and Barley must have seen the raven and realized they needed to get back on course, she thought. She turned toward the pass and drove on. Sedalia began to feel nervous. It was nearly dark, the sun was setting, and once it was gone, it would be pitch black on these treacherous mountain roads. If she couldn't put all the pieces of the puzzle together soon, her efforts would be for nothing. The minivan was picking up speed when Sedalia rounded a corner. Suddenly, there was nothing in front of her. No path, no road, no fire tracks, no raven. There was only a massive mountain of boulders, as if the road itself had been swallowed whole. Sedalia hit the brakes as soon as she saw the boulders, turning the steering wheel hard to the right. The minivan narrowly avoided the nearest boulder, and she shot forward in her seat, restrained by her seatbelt. "No," Sedalia said. "No, no!" Oh, so that's the end of chapter 14. So if you guys followed along with the first novel, like onward, you guys know what happened here, and it's so sad. I'm still not over it. Okay, here's chapter 15. "I can't believe this," Sedalia shouted, kicking the boulder in front of her minivan. "How am I going to follow the tire tracks now? Or the ravens, for that matter," she thought. Time was wasting. It was dark already, and she couldn't even come close to driving her minivan over the boulders, which meant going on foot. That would slow her down even more. Suddenly, it looked like going on Ian and Barley's quest was no longer an option. Her eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she had really thought she could do this. She had gotten the leads. She had found the manticore. She had gone on the path of peril, but it was all for nothing. Sedalia looked over at her notebook sitting on the passenger seat. It was filled with her detailed notes and theories and questions. So many questions that still remained unanswered. Maybe I need to go at this from a different angle, she thought. Take a less obvious route. But I don't even know where to start. All she knew was that failure was not an option. She had sworn there was no way she was going to fail Ian and Barley or herself. Not now. Not when she was so close to getting the story. With fresh determination, Sedalia put the minivan in reverse and turned the vehicle around. It skidded in the dirt for a moment, sending the minivan over a large rock. The bump nearly sent Sedalia through the roof, but she felt like screaming. Taking a deep breath, she headed back toward the drawbridge. Unlike on her initial trip over the bridge, Sedalia decided to practically floor it across the way back. She figured that if she went fast enough, she might avoid the problem she had experienced on the way over. Turned out she was right. The trip was dull and uneventful, but that didn't make Sedalia feel any better. In fact, she felt terrible. She'd been through so much already, and to come so close only to have to pack it in, it made her angry. After hours of maneuvering through the path of peril in the dark, Sedalia was finally speeding down the expressway. She was relieved to be back on paved roads. As she drove, she started playing everything over in her head, sorting through the facts that she gathered so far. She still needed to talk to Ian and Barley and their mother. She figured that would be last. She could stop at the police station on the way home to write her story. But would she even be allowed to talk to them? She had been met with so much resistance before. Why would the police suddenly let her see them? But what else was there? What was she missing? Everything said that the whole thing had started when the school turned into a dragon. But Sedalia realized that the whole thing had really started when Ian and Barley grabbed the map from the Manticore's tavern. Possibly even before that. So the boys had the map, and they found Raven's Point, or whatever the ravens were pointing at, which was what? Then she remembered the Phoenix Gem. How had she forgotten? She had been so caught up in the quest, that's why. And not just Ian and Barley's quest. No, it was Sedalia's own personal quest. The quest to become a journalist, a real reporter. She had become obsessed with all the little details, like the mystery of shades. Sedalia had forgotten what the boys were after originally. Assuming that they had found the Phoenix Gem, where did they go next? She needed more information, but she didn't have it. And judging by the flashing light on her dashboard, she didn't have enough gas either. She had done so much driving that day that the van was ready to fill up already. Meeting the sprites at the gas station felt like a lifetime ago. Sedalia drove for another couple of miles, hoping her mom's minivan wouldn't suddenly give up. Her luck held out as she managed to make it to a gas station. Pulling up to the pump, she dug into her pocket. She only had a little money left, but it would be enough to buy a few gallons of gas and get her back home. While she pumped the fuel, Sedalia noticed that there was a 24-hour diner across the road. It was late, and she pulled out her cell phone. It looked like she finally had reception, but almost no power left. That's when she noticed the missed calls and voicemails and text messages, all suddenly loading in now that she was back in range. Her parents. Sedalia groaned. Where's a bottomless pit when you need one? Her minivan gassed up. She drove across the street and parked at the diner. She closed the car door and took in a deep breath of night air. What time is it? She wondered, realizing she hadn't checked when she looked at her phone. She walked up the steps to the diner, reached for the glass door on the right, and gave it a yank. It wouldn't budge. Then she heard someone call out from inside the diner. The right one don't work. So she grabbed the handle of the left door and pulled. It opened and she went inside. Sedalia looked around and saw that it was almost entirely empty except for a cyclops sitting at the counter, drinking a cup of tea, and a satyr working behind the register. Don't usually get a lot of customers this time of night, the satyr said. Have a seat at the counter. Want to order anything? Sedalia smiled. I'm good, thanks. Actually, I was hoping that I maybe could sit down for a few minutes and charge my phone. She held up her cell phone at the dangling charge cord. The satyr frowned. I'd say you have to order something, but I don't see how that would come close to making a difference. Sure, go ahead. Thanks, Sedalia said. This is about the only thing that's gone right tonight. Sedalia walked past the counter toward a booth. As she passed the only other customer, she saw the Cyclops was sound asleep, snoring lightly, his face just a few inches above his cup of tea. Don't worry about old Henderock, the satyr said. He comes in here every night, orders a cup of tea, falls asleep. It's his kind of thing. Oh, it's kind of his thing. Sedalia noticed and nodded and sat down at the booth. She leaned down to plug in her charge cord and then put the other end in her phone. Staring at the screen, Sedalia looked at the number of messages she'd received from her parents. 32 calls, 17 texts. She felt guilty. She didn't want to listen to the voicemails or read the text. Time to face the music, she said, and she called her house. Sedalia wasn't even sure if the phone actually rang. Before she knew it, her mother was on the other end of the line. Sedalia, where are you? Do you have any idea how worried we've been? Do you know what time it is? It's after midnight. Mom, I'm at the diner. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't going to cut it. Come home now. I didn't mean... Are you alright? Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. Nothing bad happened. Sedalia could tell that her mother was relieved. She was okay when her next question was, what about my minivan? Any scratches? She thought about the flat tire and the small couple of dents that resulted from the rocky terrain of the path of peril. Sedalia decided that those technically didn't count as scratches. No, it's all good. Just come home, honey, her mother said. Just come home. I'll be there in a half hour, Sedalia said, then hung up the phone. That sounds fun, the satyr said. Sorry, I couldn't hear but I couldn't help but hear you on account of the diner's complete lack of noise. Sedalia nodded as her stomach gave a loud rumble. She realized she hadn't eaten all day. I guess I'll take a burger to go, she said, defeated. So that's the end of chapter 15, guys. Imagine if you had that many voicemails and messages from your parents. Oof, man, you would be in trouble. I know I would. Right. This is chapter 16, the last chapter for today. See what happens. There was one silver lining. At least Sedalia was returning the minivan in one piece. She couldn't believe it had held together as well as it did. That was about the only good thing Sedalia could think of as she drove down the street toward her house. As she approached the driveway, she could see that her mom and dad were standing on the steps outside their front door in their bathrobes waiting for her. Their expressions showed a mixture of worry and anger, anxiety, and who knew what else. Sedalia felt awful. This was the first time in her life that she had ever done anything like this. She'd never even really been late before, but this was more than being late. This was a whole lot of things, all rolled into one. She had left messages for her mother and told them that she wasn't going to be home right away and not to worry about her, but she hadn't asked for permission before doing any of it. On top of that, she hadn't exactly been 100% truthful with them about everything that she was doing either. She parked the minivan and trudged across the driveway, up a little stone path, and toward the front steps. Steeling herself for what was to come, Sedalia decided that it was better to speak first. Maybe she could throw herself on her sword and her parents might show her some mercy. Before you say anything, Sedalia started, please know that I'm so sorry. But she couldn't even get out another word before Sedalia's mom threw her arms around her daughter's shoulders. Her dad joined in, hugging the two of them. Their combined grip was so tight that Sedalia thought for sure she could feel something cracking, like maybe a rib. Don't ever do that again, her mom said, punctuating every word. What she said, her dad added. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Sedalia said, and she was. I got so caught up in getting the story, I totally lost track of time. Mrs. Nightdale told me that this was the kind of story that could set somebody up to be editor-in-chief of the newspaper. I want that so badly. And I made some bad choices, and you're always telling me to make good choices, and I did just the opposite. Shh, her mother said, patting Sedalia's back. I know, there's a lot of pressure on you, and I know you want to be the best. Yeah, Sedalia said. We want you to be the best person you can possibly be too, her dad added. We want you to succeed, but we also want you to be safe. That's what parents do. It's our job to keep you around for as long as possible, you know. Sedalia laughed. I know, Dad. Now look, it's late, her mom said. It's time you get to bed. You need your sleep. We can talk about your punishment in the morning. Sedalia's eyes opened wide. Wait, what? Punishment? I thought you were just glad I was home safe. We are glad, completely glad, and relieved. So relieved, her dad said, smiling. But you're still totally in trouble, her mom chimed in. There's no getting around that, kiddo. At the very least, you're grounded. That means no leaving except for school and essentials. Guess you do, her dad said. Oh, sorry. Sedalia let out a big, heavy sigh that seemed to linger. I guess I deserve that. Guess you do, her dad said, giving his daughter another hug. Sedalia's mom had a slight smile on her face, and she gave her daughter a kiss on the forehead. Go inside, honey. Sleep well. No staying up and writing either. Sedalia went upstairs 2 at a time. Yes, what I said. Sedalia went up the stairs 2 at a time and headed for her bedroom. She ran inside, then closed the door. Wheeling the chair out from under her desk, she sat down. Then she reached around the back of her computer monitor and turned the system on. While it hummed to life, Sedalia set her notepad down on the desk and took out the children's menu from the Montecourt's Tavern. She booted up her word processing program and stared at the blank screen. She was ready to write. She stared at the blank screen some more. The cursor blinked on and off, just waiting for Sedalia to start typing. I have no idea what I'm supposed to write about. What I'm going to write, she said. Where do I even start with this? Her fingers grasped the notepad and she started to flip through the pages. She had discovered an unbelievable amount of ground on her travels over the past couple of days, and she'd interviewed so many different people. There was Grecklin, the Montecourt, the 2 police officers, Principal Pipamel, the clerk at the gas station, Dewdrop. Sedalia's mind was racing. She had a ton of information, but there were still people she needed to interview. And they were the most important ones. Ian and Barley, for starters. There was just no way she was going to be able to complete the story in the time she had, and get it right, really right, without getting those interviews and the answers to her questions. The story would be incomplete. And incomplete stories didn't help a person become editor-in-chief. Pushing back the desk, Sedalia stared at the blinking cursor on the blank screen. She took a deep breath, held it, then exhaled. Maybe I'll check online to see if there's anything I can find out there, she thought. If she was stuck in her room, unable to get out into the field to learn more, then maybe she could bring the world to her. Opening the web browser, she did a search for Dragon New Mushroom Tin. Sedalia startled when she heard a light knock on her door. She quickly turned out the light and dove into bed just as her mom opened the door. You weren't working on your story, were you? Her mom asked. Sedalia was quiet for a moment. You know I was, Mom. Her mom laughed softly. Yeah, I know. Now I'm serious. You need your rest, and we need a break. Get to sleep, kid. I'm just gonna read for a little bit, then I'm gonna hit the hay, Sedalia promised. Her mom gave her a look that said, okay, but just for a minute, and then closed the door. Leaping up from the bed, Sedalia scooted back into the chair by the desk and looked at the computer screen. The screen was filled with news stories, all covering the dragon battle in the town square. Sedalia clicked on the first story and skimmed through it. Then she went to the next story and the next. Each one contained more of the same information. A dragon attack in New Mushroom Tin. The town is baffled. No one knows who's responsible. The Lightfoot family is somehow connected. As Sedalia clicked on the 10th link, she began to doze off. So it seems like all those other stories don't have much in there. Sedalia woke up with a start. Her clock read 3:27 a.m. She was annoyed with herself for wasting time, but it was clear that her brain and body needed a break. She moved her computer mouse, waking up the monitor. She felt just as stuck as she had a couple of hours before. Maybe I need to make my search more specific, she thought. She typed Barley Lightfoot in the search bar. She was surprised to see that the first result was a video. Sedalia quickly clicked on the link and the video window popped up. The video was shaky, like an amateur had shot it. It looked as though it had been recorded on somebody's phone. But sure enough, there was Barley, clear as day, standing in front of the fountain in the middle of the town square. Members of a construction crew were yelling at him, and so were a bunch of police officers who had gathered around the base of the fountain. I won't let you tear down this fountain, Barley shouted. Get out of the way, an annoyed construction worker hollered back. Ancient warriors and grand quests drank from its flowing waters, Barley said. Then the police officers yanked on Barley, grabbing at his legs and arms, and he fell into the dirty water. Sedalia played the video again, watching it all the way through once more. Then she played it again and again. The fountain, she said to herself. Officer Gore mentioned this. Then she grabbed her notepad, flipping rapidly through the pages until she came across her notes from the interview. Barley, always in trouble, /protesting, /complaining. Fountain business. Category of stuff I shouldn't say anything about. Follow up. So that's what she wrote in her notepad. I'm sorry you guys can't see it that well. Oh, don't tell me that was the last one. I don't think so. Okay. I gotta check the fountain, Sedalia said. There's something here. She grabbed the children's menu, folded it, put it back in the notepad, and shoved it in her pocket. Sedalia was about to open her bedroom door when something suddenly dawned on her. Oh yeah, I'm in massive trouble, and I'm grounded, and leaving the house right now is the world's worst idea. So that was the end of it then. If she listened to her parents, then she was done with the story. There'd be no checking out the fountain, no interviews with Ian and Barley or their mom, nothing, no editor-in-chief. She had to get the story. There was no other option. Not when she was this close. That's when she realized her mom had said that yes, she was grounded, but she had also told Sedalia that she was allowed to leave the house for school and essentials only. Was there anything more essential than breaking the story of the century? Sedalia didn't think there was, so she did what anyone in her position would do. She grabbed a bunch of pillows and pulled up the covers over them to make it look like she was sleeping in the bed. Then she opened her bedroom door, climbed out onto the roof, and scampered down to the ground. That's the end of it. Ooh, guys, she is leaving. I'm gonna save the page real quick. So next we're gonna read chapter 17 on Monday. Oh, guys, let me see how many chapters there were again. I believe we said that there was 21 chapters plus an epilogue, or was it just 20 and an epilogue? Oh, 22 chapters and an epilogue. So we'll say 23 total. So we should have yeah, about like two more videos left over for this book. So I can see if I can extend it to cover for the next week's videos, but I believe that we only have 2 more videos left for this book from what it looks like. That's crazy, guys. So of course this is where I just give my thoughts for the book so far. So if you want to leave, guys, you're more than welcome to leave, of course. And I will see you on Monday again. Have a good weekend. If you're staying, then here's what I think. Sedalia really does make those connections very well. You know, I don't know if anyone else would have thought about shades, you know, making like everything that she knows, she's making connections between them. And when you look at it from the outside, it looks like something that doesn't look like it'd be connected, but it really is. So she's very intuitive when it comes to making those connections. And she's very, and I keep saying this every video, she's very audacious. She's brave. She puts herself out there even though she has fear. Bravery is the ability to overcome your fear. And that's what she's constantly doing throughout this book. So I really, really love her character. I love her tenacity, you know, her being straightforward, wanting to do things her own way, not being afraid. Well, she was afraid, but not letting her fear keep her away from getting what she wants to get done. I really love Sedalia. I think she's a great character. I am really hoping that we get to see her talk to Ian and Barley again, because she didn't get to speak much to them. And I would love to finally have our heroes back in, you know, the storyline again. The main story. I miss them so much, and I think it would be a great thing to see them come back in the story and see what they would say, like what their statement would be after all of this happened. You know, how would they even contemplate how to say something about this event that they went on, this adventure, because it's such a strange thing. Because at this time they don't believe in magic anymore. No one believes in magic. They think it's fake, even though they knew that they used to be into magic decades ago, centuries ago. But it's like making a comeback, and I feel like Sedalia is going to be one of the people that helps that happen because of her story. So I'm really excited to see how the 3 of them are going to make this the public change, you know, like how society will change for the better. And so I was saying earlier, guys, if you don't remember, those boulders that she came across is where Guinevere sadly was crushed by the boulders when Barley had decided to use Guinevere as a distraction and an obstacle for the police to no longer get to Ian and Barley so they can continue on the adventure. So it was so sad seeing that part of it was interesting that she couldn't see. So yeah, guys, anyway, that was today's video. So I will see you guys on Monday. You know, we're gonna keep reading. We're gonna start with chapter 17, so don't miss it, guys. I will see you guys on Monday. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Have as much fun as you can. Stay safe, and I will see you later. Bye, guys.